Once you've arrived at your campsite, the next thing you're going to do is determine where you're going to set up your tent. So to do that, you are going to think about the camping triangle. And that is that you are going to cook your food in one spot where it's going to create a smell where animals will be attracted to, store your food in a bear bag, bear canister in another spot, and then put your tent where you're sleeping in the third spot. Ideally, they should be about 100 feet, 100 yards. I know there's a difference, but you'll see it in different places. But let's, for sake of argument, go with at least 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, somewhere in there. 100 feet minimum is how far you want to be away from where you're cooking. This is clearly where you're going to be cooking. There's a picnic table, there's a grill. So backcountry, following that rule, you wouldn't necessarily put your tent right here. However, this is designed more of a front country site, so you can see there's a place that is matted down. This would be a perfectly acceptable place. There's also, if we wanted to follow the camp triangle, there is another spot just down here that is matted down as well. Clearly a place that is made for a tent. When you're looking at places that are made for tent, you're looking for something where there's no vegetation, you're not going to damage anything. The soil's already been knocked down, so I put my tent here versus say over here or a patch of wildflowers or anything that could kill the plants. So this would be a great area. I'm probably going to put our tent further down there just to follow the guidelines. We're going to cook, probably have a fire here since it's available. But when you go to set your tent up, the next thing you're going to do is look above you, and you're looking for something called widowmakers. So basically dead trees, anything that could fall on you on the middle of the night. If they are dead, don't put your tent there. So this spot would be fine. The spot down there I looked at is a perfectly acceptable place as well. So a couple things to think about in making your campsite selection. So I'm gonna go set our tent up. The other thing to consider when you're setting up your tent is the elevation. This one's pretty flat, but it's probably hard to see, but it is coming off of a hill up there and it still has a little bit of a slope. They definitely tried to make it flat, but the one down here is even flatter, so we're gonna go for that one tonight as well. Here's the other spot I was talking about. You can see, obviously, people have camped here before. The best campsites are found, not made. So you can see it's nice and flat, no hill anywhere around it. So we're gonna start here. And again, just as a reconfirmation, looking for widowmakers, anything that is dead, that if it started raining or got windy, you wanna make sure it's not going to fall on your tent. So setting up camp in the spot. Once you've chosen the place that you're going to set your tent, the next thing you want to do is to grab your foot or your tarp. It's basically the part that's going to separate your tent and thus you from the wet ground if it happens to rain or if the ground is already wet. So you want to put your foot down, and as you have this down, you want to lay on it and see if it's comfortable while you're laying down. So roll around, make sure it feels good, make sure there's no big bumps or anything. If you happen to find an acorn under it, there are lots of acorns out this time of year. So if you happen to find one that's in your shoulder, just move it away. Or if there's a big rock that you don't want stabbing you all night, you can grab some leaf litter that's around, especially this time of year, and put a bunch of it on to pad the rock so it makes it softer. So lots of options to make it more comfortable while you're out here enjoying the outdoors, despite whether you have a thick or a thin sleeping pad. When you're rolling around, you also want to give that look up again to make sure there are no widowmakers, nothing that is going to fall on you in the middle of the night. Give a nice wiggle, make sure you're good. And then the last thing is to make sure you check out the elevation. Up there, I said there was a little bit of elevation. If there is elevation, you want to make sure that your head is uphill. You don't want all that blood rushing to your head as you sleep. You're going to wake up not feeling the best. So make sure you put your head uphill. Make sure there's nothing under here that is uncomfortable. Make sure it's nice flat, no widowmakers, and then go ahead and set your tent up. With the tent set up on nice flat ground, your head uphill. You also want your head uphill because, let's face it, even if you like the person you're with, you don't want to be rolling into them all night or them into you. So now that it's all set up, you have the tent bag. So I recommend that you put all of your bags inside of the one bag and then put it at your feet inside the tent so that you always know where it is. The big thing is having a system while you're out backpacking. So when you're like packing your pack, we say have a CBS, conveniently balanced system. Everything in backpacking has a system. So my system is my sleeping bag is always in the bottom of my backpack. So I have a down sleeping bag. So I'll have that out in a waterproof bag. That way you can easily have it protected from the rain, the elements. I don't use a garbage bag. I tried that once. I'd rather have stuff in their individual bags. And then I also have an inflatable sleeping pad. So I will put both of those in the tent with the bags for all of these in my foot, so they're easy to find in the morning. As I'm putting my sleeping pad in here, I just have the inflatable Thermarest Neo Air. I was thinking a cool fact for you is, how do you determine how many people can fit in a tent? So this is a 2-person tent. That means you can take 2 sleeping pads and put them next to each other, and that equals 2-person tent. So it doesn't mean you have lots of room to spread out. It is literally the width of 2 sleeping pads. You can see mine is all the way against the wall, and you can imagine that same width is going to be on the other side. So when Phil's is in here, it's going to take up the whole tent. So 2-person tent equals the width of 2 sleeping pads. Next, I'm putting my sleeping bag out, and if you notice, mine happens to be a 15-degree bag. So I ask you, at what temperature would you not use this bag? You're thinking, duh, 15 degrees. Actually, however, I wouldn't use this bag in anything below maybe 25 to 30 degrees. So tonight, I think the low is around 40, so we should be just fine. But the temperature rating on here is not the temperature at which you'll be the most comfortable. It's the temperature at which you won't die. And I don't know about you, but I want to sleep in something a little more comfortable than not dying. So always go about 10 to 15 degrees warmer than what the actual low temperature is going to be. So I got my sleeping bag, sleeping pad. Phil's gonna put his in here when he gets here, and we are all set for camp tonight.